Hi, welcome to the second video that I made out of the Instagram live AMA that I did for The Addictive Brain on March 3rd, 2019. As I explained in the beginning of the first video, I decided to make this a little series of 4 videos about my own research. In the last episode, I was talking about my biography. I was giving you a rundown of what I've done so far. And in this video, I will talk about my undergraduate study, which was on the Oriental Firebellied frog and its mating calls. My first real science research thesis was with my undergrad in undergrad, and it was on frogs and how they do their mating calls. So if you have a lot of male frogs around a pond, then they're all shouting because they want to attract a female. And the problem with that is if everybody is called at the same time, then the females have problems locating the one they're interested in. So they have this system where when they know they would be calling at the same time as another frog, they would inhibit the next call and then just after a short break start calling again. So that's a quite interesting phenomenon. And what we did was a behavioral experiment where you have the frog in the pond, or not in the pond, in an aquarium, and we gave it a testosterone injection so that it would be interested in calling. And then we added a loudspeaker and a synthesizer. And I programmed the synthesizer so that it would play calls of frogs, basically. And we were working on the Oriental Firebellied frog, which you might find maybe in China. And the good thing about those is that they have this very simple call that is basically just a tone repeated several times with a fixed rate. So it would go like, and there is literature out there where they actually calculated how both the temperature of the water and the size of the frog influence the frequency of the call and the rate at which the frog would call. And then I implemented that into a little program that would make the synthesizer create these naturalistic sounds. You can make the frog start calling just by turning on the synthesizer, and then the synthesizer is calling and the frog is calling, and because they're not calling at exactly the same rate, you would have overlapping calls at some point, and when that moment is reached, then the actual frog would inhibit the next call and then start calling a little bit later. So just to avoid that they would be calling at the same time. So the next thing is a little bit of a Frankenstein experiment. Basically, we removed the brain and then we had it in a jar, basically. And we were able to record the electrical activity in cranial nerves, which are large nerves that go in and out of the brain and then go into the face region, for example. And there is one that goes where the signal for breathing goes through, and one where the signal for the glottis goes through. And then there's a third one where the auditory signal comes in. So we stimulated on the auditory nerve and recorded from the breathing and the calling nerve. And I was able to record fictive calling, as it's called, which means there is no real calling because it's an isolated brain, but you can still see the signals for calling, and that was kind of creepy. Unfortunately, after I managed to do this, it was time to hand in my thesis, and this particular advisor didn't have the funding to keep me around, so that's where that ended, which is sad. I actually think that especially the behavioral part was worth a publication, but it never came to that. Yeah, creepy isolated brain, exactly. But it's kind of it's amazing that you can take out a brain and put it in a jar and it still stays alive for quite some time, actually, just by keeping it cool and having it in a fluid that has enough oxygen. You could not do that with an mammalian brain or with a bird brain. You can only do that with these well, amphibians, for example, who are cold-blooded and are more resilient to the tissue becoming cold. Because if you keep them warm, they will die quicker. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like. If you haven't seen the first video, go ahead and watch it now. Have a nice day.